Bill, I like your new setup.
Yeah. And, I was saying I've been kicked out of my office and into the living room, but that's okay. And I'm like on the laptop, so I don't know what the quality's like, but you know,
All right.
It's spotty, but the fire looks warm.
All right. Well, the meeting of Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, December 7th, 2022, please come to order. This
I'm in a meeting.
This-
in the meeting all
this-
night.
this evening's meeting will be a Zoom virtual planning and zoning meeting hosted by Zoom. During this meeting, our procedures will be as follows. When you first enter the Zoom meeting, you will be in a virtual waiting room until the meeting host admits you. 2, please be aware that your camera, if you have one, and your microphone will be muted by the meeting host when you enter the meeting. You can turn on your camera at any time so you can be seen by others when and if you choose to. In order to run an efficient and orderly meeting in this virtual environment, unless stated otherwise by the meeting chairman during the meeting host will keep everyone other than the commission members muted. You will still be able to hear everything said by the commission members, even if you're muted and or your camera is not on. There will be an opportunity for public comment during public hearings, at which time public participants will be unmuted. 3, the secretary will read the call of the meeting as published according to Governor Lamont's executive order. 4, during the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to present the application, explain to the commission and others present what is being requested. The meeting host will share all related documents on the screen as needed. In addition, all applications and supporting materials for each application on the agenda are available through the public meeting calendar page of the town website, www.guilfordct.gov, also through a direct link on the planning and zoning page. 5, comments of town agencies will be read for each application if there are any. There will be clarifying questions from commissioners. 6, there will then be an opportunity for clarifying questions from the audience. Please raise your hand through the Zoom platform and wait to be called on and unmuted. As this public hearing must be recorded, it is necessary for speakers to identify themselves each time they speak by stating their name and address. 7, after all clarifying questions are exhausted, those who wish to speak in support of the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make a statement. Then those who wish to speak in opposition to the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make their statement. The applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. 9, once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearings and the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as the decision of this commission and has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. 10, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Department at 03-453-8039 or by emailing planning.zoning@guilfordct.gov after 9 a.m. 11, all actions taken on applications tonight by the commission will be roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are the following members who will please identify themselves. Kevin Clark.
Here.
Ted Sands.
Here.
Philip Johnson.
Here.
Sean Cosgrove.
Here.
Frank DeAndrea.
Here.
And I am Scott Edmond. Alternates are Jason Marty
Here.
and Larry Rizzolo.
Here.
Nice representation by women.
We're always looking for volunteers to join commissions in town.
And a woman leads us.
So I think tonight we'll go, I think Larry Rizzolo's turn to be seated since Bill Freeman's not here. Jason will be our alternate still. Staff present are Jamie Stein, town planner. I don't believe. And that's it for town staff. This meeting will be recorded via the Zoom platform and made available at the town website for reviewing. Secretary will now read the legal notice.
Scott, quick question.
Yeah.
As we only have 6 members, should Jason be seated?
I'm having Larry seated tonight. Larry's an alternate as well. Both Larry and Jason are alternates.
Usually we would go 4 and 3, right?
I usually switch back and I try to switch back and forth between the two alternates.
Okay.
That's typically what I do.
Sorry.
Jamie, can you put the notice up? Okay, here's the legal notice, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission. Notices should be given that the Planning and Zoning, Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a virtual public hearing on December 7th, 2022, 7:30 p.m. via the Zoom platform by the use of the following link. Okay, accessory dwelling unit draft regulations opting into Connecticut Public Act 21-29 model regulations. Following application will be heard. Joseph A. D'Amato, 46 Gray Ledge Drive, map 51, lot 214, or zone 5. A special permit application for an after-the-fact attached accessory apartment. Guilford Agricultural Society Incorporated, 111 Lovers Lane, map 40, lot 138, zone R3. Special permit application for renewal with proposed amendments to the reissue special permit dated May 6, 2020. Copies of these applications are available for inspection in the Planning and Zoning Office and on the town's website. At this hearing, persons may attend via web connection and shall be heard. All written correspondence shall be submitted to planning.zoning@guilfordct.gov 24 hours prior to the meeting day. Documents are available at the Planning and Zoning Office, dial 203-453-8032 for assistance. Dated at Guilford, Connecticut, this 15th day of November, 2022. Scott Edmund, Chairman.
Thanks, Sean. Do I hear a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you, Ted.
Second.
Second to Frank. All in favor? You say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. First item on our public hearing agenda is Joyce A. D'Amato, 46 Gray Ledge Drive, map 51, lot 214, zone R5. Special permit application for an after-the-fact attached accessory apartment. Who is here to represent D'Amato?
I am Mr. Chairman, Jeffrey Beatty, 705 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut.
Great.
So this is a application for an accessory apartment after the fact. It was built over 35 years ago. It's an interior accessory apartment, and my clients are selling their home, and our client, Mr. D'Amato, is deceased. We needed to get the special permit approved because there's an accessory dwelling within the building. We've sent the notices out to the neighboring property owners. We haven't received any objections. It's not really visible from the street. It's already there. It's been there for quite a while. And the septic system was recently upgraded, and I submitted a B100A signed by Shirley Mickens. The completion of the septic system was just done shortly, either before or right after Thanksgiving, and it has sufficient capacity to serve the needs of the apartment and the bedrooms in the rest of the house. There is sufficient parking, and as I say, it's been there for quite a while, so we're requesting that the commission approve this application. At the time it was built, I don't know that the owner of the property realized the need to get a special permit and didn't do so. So that's why we're here tonight.
This seriously appeared again, huh?
Is this where in the home is this accessory apartment?
It's down on the it's on the lower level, and it's got a sliding glass door access to the exterior. So it does satisfy the access requirements of the regulations. It's a little over 815 square feet. So it's above the minimum, but below the maximum of your regulations. And, it's got a kitchen, bathroom, and 2 very small bedrooms in addition to a living area.
We have a memo here from Shirley Minkins. I can put it up real quick. Kevin Clark, could we get you to? Actually, I don't have
Yep.
screen sharing ability.
I have it.
Thank you, Kevin.
To Planning and Zoning Commission from Shirley Mickens.
Can we please have someone who is not on mute just stop talking?
I think it's
Maybe.
Gil Lombard. Jamie. Thank
There we
you.
go. Thanks,
Perfect.
Gil.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sean.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thank
Jamie,
you,
if you
Sean.
can make me a co-host, then I can help with some of those things.
To Planning and Zoning Commission from Shirley Mickens, Registered Sanitarian, December 12th, 2022, RE 47 Gray Lodge Drive, map 51, lot 214. The Health Department has recently installed a code-compliant subsurface sewage disposal system at the above address to accommodate the accessory apartment and a 4-bedroom home. The Health Department requires submittal of a B100A application and interior plans in order to approve the work. Shirley Mickens.
Just for public knowledge, can we put up those interior plans, Jamie?
Well, I'm confused. Mr. Attorney Beatty said that they had filed the form, and the health department says that they don't have it. So what's going on?
We submitted it and received it yesterday from Ms. Mickens. So I have a feeling it was one of those situations where the memo was prepared and submitted at around or close to the same time that the B100A was issued.
I can also pull up the B100A application if you'd like. Here are the floor plans.
That's the first floor, and then the accessory apartment is probably the next right there. That's it.
Thanks. Yeah,
I think there's also some photographs of the
Yep.
exterior
Yep.
of the home. And then I can also pull up the B100A if you'd like.
sure.
Okay. And here is that. And this was shared with us after I received the memo from Shirley. So I think it just was written before the full application was complete.
So this is after the fact. How long has this been
It
there?
said right there, over 35 years.
This might sound like an odd question because it's been there for that long. Have building
Yeah.
permits been secured?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the rest of your question. I just heard
Sorry,
have
building permits been secured for this work?
when it was constructed in the 1980s.
So usually what we do is if we have an after the fact application, we ask applicants to go through the process as if they were going through it now. So they would take out building permits because that triggers the inspection to make sure that what's there is safe and compliant.
I don't believe building permits have been pulled for I don't believe that, other than the health director, or with regard to the permits that were pulled for the septic and system, and we had a roofer repairing the roof on the property, so permits were pulled for that, but not with regard to the accessory dwelling unit. I don't believe we've had the building department out there to inspect that.
You know, I think given the fact that coming before us, asking for permission to build these types of units, I'm with Phil. You know, go back in time and get the building.
Just, you know,
Well-
it shouldn't be an expensive or tedious process. We just want to make sure if we're approving an accessory dwelling unit, that it's
Yeah.
safe for people to be.
Right.
And the building permits are the trigger for that process.
Attorney Beatty, do you know how old the house, the proper is?
According to the field card, it was built in 1973.
So basically the basement was finished around the same time that the rest of the house was built.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for commissioners? So,
Jeff, do you think that the homeowner would object to having the building official coming through just to make sure that everything is code compliant and safe?
No, I don't think so. I think they're willing to do that. I'm less concerned about the homeowner's perspective than the buyers who are anxious to close as soon as possible. So, but I'll let them know that that's what the commission would prefer we do, and we'll do it.
yeah.
So I'm taking it that nothing obvious was picked up during the home inspection then, from a safety or a code compliance
There
standpoint.
might not have been one.
There was a home inspection because there was a relatively lengthy list of things that the buyers requested that the homeowner do, including replace the septic system at a cost of around $46,000, repair the roof at a substantial cost, and take care of getting the chimney cleaned out. So there was a home inspection done. I don't know who did it, but I got the results of the inspection and the request for the repairs that my clients performed in connection with the sale.
Okay. Is there any questions from the public? Is there anyone that would want to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone that would want to speak against this application? Seeing none and seeing that Attorney Beatty has been fine with the stipulation about getting a building official to walk through, I would entertain the question of whether someone wants to, if we want to drop the second public hearing on a special permit for this item.
Did we also ask about building permits, Scott?
Sorry, say that again.
Are we going to also ask that building permits be taken out for the work that was completed?
That's what I was saying. Seeing as Attorney Beatty was fine with that stipulation of a building permit be added to our decision, or are you thinking, Philip, that we needed to wait until the building permit is completed and then we reassess in the next meeting?
Jamie, maybe you can help us with that. From permit issuance through walking through with the building official, how much is that going to hold them up?
Well, if I might just offer a suggestion, we recently approved the conversion of an accessory structure that was approved for lodging into an accessory dwelling unit. I think in this particular case, I believe that the unit was built when the home was built. And I'm fairly certain that building permits were probably taken out for that activity, but just not the accessory dwelling unit. So I'm hesitant to request building permits as if the job were being built, but I don't think it would be too arduous to ask for a building inspector to go to the site and just ensure that it is indeed safe to serve as a dwelling. But if they were to pull a permit, that typically takes about 2 to 3 weeks to process at this point in time.
Well,
Do you think
given that this is December already, and there's a buyer here who wants to close, probably would like to close prior to the end of the year. Is it possible that we could approve this subject to a satisfactory inspection by the building inspector?
Yes, I think that's certainly what Jamie was suggesting. Other commissioners have any contrary opinion to that?
Only from this, and again, the new buyers have nothing to do with it, but kind of end running the process and taking out building permits and then withholding fees from the town and then the triggering of the inspection process. I mean, I'm confident that the building inspector will do a good job. It's just, I don't think we want to be, as a general statement, encouraging after the fact applications, and we'd rather have things done properly on the front side. And if we're rewarding people by saying, we'll approve it and you don't have to take out building permits, that from a long-term standpoint is a little concerning.
Sure, understood.
Jamie, is there a way to expedite the building permit?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think it will be that arduous. I mean, the applicant has a very swift responding representative, so I think we'll be able to do it fairly easily.
We're motivated to act swiftly, that's for sure.
Mr. Campaign, do you have a question?
I guess it would be good to clarify whether it has to be held to the standards of a 30-year-old building code or the current building code, which was just updated in October. I will be willing to guarantee that the building does not meet the new building code. So I don't know that they can pull a building permit under the current code and have it satisfied. None of your houses could satisfy the current code. So I just want to raise that so it's clarified, because I think it's an impossible task to make that satisfy the current building code if it was built 35 years ago, unless they were incredibly ahead of their time.
Thanks, Mr. Campaign. Yeah, that's why I've been hesitating on this and not really jumping into a decision. Because you're absolutely correct. There's no way that it'll actually meet code.
So should we be approving, what is an after the fact application now for something that couldn't be approved now? Again,
I think it's not your purview. The building code is one, separate body, and you're a zoning body about the use. So I don't think you're accepting any liability to accept this as an existing situation. I'm not an attorney, but I think they are separate, and the building department can be made aware of the situation and react the way they feel they need to. I know that you have the leverage right now, but it's 30 years old. So I think it also, someone who immediately gets caught doing something, I think, yes, you should have them retroactively get building permits and not make it an easy avenue. But something that happened 30 years ago, I didn't work in this town 30 years ago, but it's permits were not nearly as strictly enforced, let's just say, 30 years ago, for building changes and alterations and new construction. It was kind of the Wild West. So I don't know that you can, hold the same standards as we do today with the amount of oversight that we have on construction.
Look, the question is this unit safe and something that we're comfortable that people could inhabit? And that is the task of the building inspector. And personally, I would be inclined to approve this application subject to the building inspection. And if there's a problem in the inspection, those problems have to be cured.
Right. Any other opinions from commissioners? All right, so again, I would ask would anyone want to put us on a motion for suspending the second hearing on this application?
I'll move that.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Frank. Discussion.
Yeah, just to raise my point before Jamie, I'm sure Mr. Beatty will push it through. But when it goes to the town, is there a way to get the town to work faster than the 3 or 4 week timescale that you mentioned?
Well, so for an inspection, I'm sure that can be a lot quicker, handled a lot quicker than an actual full permit process.
My experience with the building department is for things like this or similar repairs in the context of a house that's on the market or with a closing coming up, they've been very, very responsive to getting out and taking a look at these types of things. Because again, as Chairman Edmund just mentioned, we're not talking about a full cellar to the roof type of inspection.
All right. Any other discussion from commissioners? I have
I
a,
guess I would
sure, go
be
ahead, Phil.
curious. I'd just be curious from a legal standpoint as to whether or not the inspection that's being done is being held to current standards or prior standards. I mean, I know Russ said that and it probably wouldn't pass, but, and again, you know, whether
I'm sure it'll be held, so there's a difference between the standards of occupancy versus the standards of building. And so I'm sure he will be inspecting it based on the standards of being able to occupy.
And that, if he can't clear that, then we shouldn't be approving.
I would add that if we can't if we can't get a certificate of occupancy, my expectation is that the buyers aren't going to want to go forward with the purchase either. So
Right, you're not even going to sell it. All right, we have a motion and a second. Larry Rizzolo.
Yes.
Waive the second public hearing, Scott?
Yeah, this is to waive the second public hearing. Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Ted Sands,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
No.
Sean Cosgrove,
No,
Frank DeAndrea,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. Passes 5-2, so that is more than 3/4. Would anyone want to make a motion to close the public hearing on this item?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second from Frank. Any discussion? Larry Rizzolo,
Yes.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Ted Sands,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
yes,
Frank DeAndrea,
Yes.
and I vote yes. We will deliberate on this evening. Thank you, Attorney Beatty.
thank you very much.
Just writing my notes. Hold, please. All right. Next item on the agenda is Guilford Agricultural Society, Inc., 111 Lovers Lane, map 40, lot 138, zone R3. Special permit application for renewal and proposed amendments to the reissued special permit dated May 6th, 2026. Hi, Barb.
Good evening. Hi, how are you?
Good.
So as you know, the last special permit that was issued, we had a 3-year relook to renew. And so over the past 3 years, I think we've done a good job with what we've held at the fairgrounds, and really haven't had any complaints about anything that's been held there. So we relooked at some of the articles and would like to make some amendments to those. The first one is item 3. We actually wanted to eliminate the notice of commercial events to the commission 30 days prior. You know, and then there was also a couple other little things in there. Because as what we do is we post all of our events on the Guilford Fair website. Most of the events that are held there, they publish and advertise and everything that they're coming. And as long as we follow the rest of what is in the special permit, I don't foresee that we should have to have a 30-day notification. We will still continue with the 14 days with the police department. They will have a list of all events as well. We will supply a list of events to the planning and zoning so that they also know what is going on there. Item 5, we asked to increase from 12 days to 15 days. Excuse me, 15 days, not including setup or breakdown. The reason we wanted to increase is there's been more of a request for events down there that we've actually had to turn away. Unfortunately, in the town, there's less and less places for people to hold events. And I think we, by allowing events there, help out the community. We help out the businesses in town, and it helps the Ag Society as well. Whatever money comes in from the events goes right back into the fairgrounds. It goes into the maintenance of the grounds. It goes into the maintenance of buildings. And it takes a lot. And I just want everybody to realize that every member of the Ag Society is a volunteer. There is not one person that is paid. So it takes a lot of man hours. Yep.
One question, Barb, on this stipulation.
And
Barb, can you hear me?
Can you guys still hear me?
Yes,
Not very
but I
well.
could ask you a question.
Scott,
Yes.
Not very well.
On this stipulation,
can you guys hear me?
Not very well.
there's a lag. There's this excessive lag.
Perhaps not.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us? Seems like she's not able to hear us. Barb,
I'm having a hard time understanding her.
Me as well.
Scott,
He is.
sounds like there's another unit that's giving this reverberation.
I think it's just the internet connection.
It could be too.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here.
Barb, if you could perhaps turn off your video so that we just hear your audio, that sometimes helps.
Did I lose?
I don't think she can hear us, Jamie.
Well, no, maybe she can.
I think I lost my microphone. Now I can, yeah.
Okay. Barb, you can hear us now, Barb? I can ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Yes. Oh my goodness, that is super delayed.
Yeah.
That's delayed by like 40, maybe a minute.
Like talking to someone on the moon.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, what is this? A tin can with a string?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have any suggestions for how we handle this?
I would suggest that if there's any other representative who could speak on behalf
Can you hear me
of the
now?
Society, they try. Or Barb could try calling in from a cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah, that could be a good way to fix it. Barb, once this comes through, can you try to call in?
Hold on. There we go. Okay, is that better?
Barb, the issue is that there's a very long delay between.
Can you hear me now?
No.
Perhaps if she signs off and signs back in again.
Yeah, that's the other option as well.
Let me try this again. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us?
Yes.
That was closer. Barb, is there anyone else that representing Ag Society that could do your presentation? Because your internet is very delayed and hard to understand.
How about if I log out and log back in?
You could try that, or also you could try calling in on your phone.
Can I log out and log back in?
Yes, you can try to log out, log back in. You can also try to call on your phone, okay?
Hold on. I'll do that.
Okay. Jamie, do you have a phone number that you could tell her to call?
Yes, I could try to find that.
Oh, boy.
Is the dial-in usually the dial by your location, York? You know?
Usually when you create it, there's a much longer set of instructions than what you usually put on the legal notice, and usually the number is in there.
Jamie, you could always force the issue by ending her call, and that would force her to log back in.
Sure.
Okay.
Would anyone want to make a motion to adjust our agenda, or would you suggest that we adjust our agenda, Jamie? To talk about our next item, or is that going to take too long of a discussion?
I mean, it's up to the commissioners. I mean, it
I
depends.
mean,
on
I guess we do have some people here that are here to specifically listen and talk about the Ag Society, so we
Correct.
should probably hang on. Okay. Did we get notice that the neighbors were notified and all that,
This is
Amy?
a special permit request. We can just postpone it. We can just not defer the second meeting and pick it up at our next meeting.
Yes.
I did get certificates of mailing. I also observed the sign posted at the fairgrounds, and we did receive a letter of support.
Yeah, that was in our files, so we saw that. All right. I guess at this time, we should move on, I think, Jamie. Do we want, I'd entertain a motion to continue to the next public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Second from Frank. Any discussion? Roll call vote, Larry Rizzolo,
yes.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Sands,
Yes.
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Yes.
Frank DeAndrea,
Yes.
and I will yes. Anyone that was here for specifically the Ag Society's application, I apologize for the technical difficulties. Hopefully we'll have those ironed out for the next meeting. Appreciate your time. If you're unable to make the next meeting, please by all means write out your questions, comments, or anything that you need to. We'll make sure we get it right into the record for you. And if you have any technical questions about the process, you feel free to check in with Jamie Stein. All right, thank you.
Scott, do we want to deliberate on Joyce D'Amato and then move to?
Wait a minute.
So technically the accessory dwelling unit draft regulations is still part of the public hearing. So we'll move on to that item.
All right.
Accessory dwelling unit draft regulations opting in to CT Public Act 21-29 model regulations. I believe Glenn is going to propose some, or not propose, but has a little follow-up for us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Glenn Scholder from Planometrics. Still having the pleasure of working with the commission on updating the zoning regulations. I'm here tonight to talk about accessory dwelling units. Accessory dwelling units have become an issue of more importance. There is a public act which goes into effect in January 1 of 2023. And we are still, as you know, in the process of updating and revising our zoning regulations. So what I just wanted to bring to the commission's attention here tonight is that up until December 31st, your current zoning regulations will continue in effect. As of January 1st of 2023, the State Public Act 2129 overrides the town's regulations and creates a scenario where accessory dwelling units will be permitted by zoning permit in the different zoning districts. And then as the town adopts new regulations in 2023, the provisions that we've been working on with regard to accessory dwelling units will be updated, if you will, with the new section, which are compliant with the state guidelines. So I think there's 3 phases coming. The current regulations essentially phase out as of December 31st. New regulations go into effect as of January 1. Our regulations don't reflect that language, but if people have questions about accessory dwelling units, that would be addressed at that time. And then following the public hearing, the new regulations for accessory dwelling units will go into effect. Municipalities did have an opportunity to opt out of the regulations, but the town and the commission reviewed those provisions and have decided to proceed with the state opt-in regulations. So again, those will be the provisions in effect as of January 1.
Glenn, there was one when we discussed this prior, there was one discussion about the if we wanted to adjust the percentage versus a size. Is that something that we should do that now, correct? Or is otherwise it just goes into effect as is?
It does, but
Scott, I'm back. Oh, I'm back.
Hi, Barb. So.
Hi, I'm on my phone now.
Sure. So Barb, unfortunately, we had to continue to the next meeting.
Oh.
So I apologize for that, but much better service now on this current call. So hopefully we can work it out better on the next meeting. All right.
Yeah, okay, whatever. You know, I've never had an issue with dealing with the town with that computer, but I don't know, maybe there's just so many people or the weather or something, I don't know.
It was very strange. It was a delay of up to a minute, actually. It was very strange. So.
And I tried to log back in like 4 different times, and it said that I was unable to because the host shut me off.
Okay.
So that was the other thing that's why it took me so long to try to get back in.
Great. I definitely apologize for your frustration there. That I'm sure that could not have been fun.
No, so now when do we have to wait for this now?
Our next meeting.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound that way, but I put a lot of time and effort into this, and
Agreed.
to have this happen, it's a little frustrating.
Next meeting is the 21st.
Next meeting is next meeting is the 21st.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go for that then.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, so back, Scott, I think, Jamie, do you want to weigh? I know you had a conversation on this with Chuck. Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, so I did share that email in the packet. It's in the materials link available on the website. I just wanted to have a little bit of a check-in with Attorney Chuck Andrus regarding, the opting out versus the opting in. And also, I just wanted to understand what the commission had the discretion to do in terms of the size of the unit. So I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at that email from Chuck, or if you'd like to, I could bring it up and we can walk through it. But in conversations that I had with Glenn earlier today, it seems as though that the commission does have the discretion to, as it says here in our draft regulations, to stipulate a percentage of the interior finished floor area of the primary unit, and then also the maximum square footage. So I just was hoping to get some clarity on how we would like to handle that.
So when we discussed it the last time, I think we had a consensus, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, that we didn't like the percentage, and we were thinking we were not going to have a percentage stipulation and just have a max square footage. Am I remembering that correctly?
I think so.
I think we discussed 1,200 square feet, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And at the time, I think we were pretty much in consensus on it. I don't remember there being much discussion about numbers or anything like that. And I think, Glenn, you mentioned that that's a pretty standard number as well.
I think there are accessory apartments that are smaller than that.
Sure.
But I think that 1,200 square feet is it's a good size unit, so it certainly provides flexibility for people. So that's my recollection too, Scott, of the conversation at the last meeting.
So,
Yeah,
just
Sean.
to clarify, this is just a
This is stipulating a not to exceed is what we're
not to exceed. So there's no minimum.
correct. And I think Glenn, I believe the state regulations require that there's no minimum, correct?
Yeah, that's probably a good way to describe it, Scott. The Public Act 2129 removed the any planning and zoning commission's ability to establish minimum floor area requirements. And so across the state now, we rely on the health code and the building code. And so the zoning regulations don't have authority anymore to address that issue.
So anyway, like I said, like they did not in any way suggest.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners on this?
Yeah, I had a question on a different aspect, if you could clarify. As I read Public Act 2129, it has language about setbacks and building heights and that sort of thing. And that's not in this proposed new regulation. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, hang on a second here. So, which section of Public Act 2129 are you looking at here?
We got 6A4 and 6A5.
I mean, I think what it's saying in 4 is that the setbacks, lot size, building frontage cannot be different than what you otherwise require for a principal dwelling. So we're relying on the setbacks, et cetera, which Guilford has in all of its zoning districts. So in other words, this essentially says that you couldn't require, double the setbacks that what you otherwise require. And the number 5 also has to do with the requirements. You can't apply standards to an accessory dwelling unit, which are different than those applied to single-family dwellings in the municipality.
So the question is, do we need language to that effect in the revised amendment? The revised.
No, that's a good question. I don't believe that we do because we're not establishing any of those requirements. But in other words, we're relying on what Guilford does today in the area of setbacks, and we don't have architectural other design standards with regard to single family. So in other words, we don't have to put in here that prohibition. These regulations reflect and track what the state regulations provide for, and we're not violating the standards which the state laid out in that public act.
Great, thank you for the clarification.
No, that's a great question, Larry. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from commissioners? Question for Jamie. So the process here is that we're having this discussion where I'm going to open it up to public comment here in a second, and then we're going to have basically have an amendment that we're going to vote on at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Well, I would like for Glenn to weigh in a little bit on that. I mean, so here's sort of what he talked about in the very beginning was that we have these existing accessory dwelling unit regulations that are in place now. Because we as a town are not opting out of Public Act 21-29, we have provided this sort of transitionary section here. And then I think, Glenn, if we could maybe just discuss how we think about transitioning to what happens January 1st, between January 1st and hopefully April and beyond.
So Scott, Jamie, I think excellent points. So this material here from November 18th lays out the default situation as to what would happen. If the commission is comfortable with the amendment that Scott discussed earlier in terms of the 1,200 square feet, we would change 1B here to remove the percent language and add in the 1,200 square foot language. We have provided for this public hearing. So if the commission wanted to move ahead and say, let's modify section 27319, I think it is, of your current regs, 27319, there we go. Replace it with this. that would now put these provisions into effect. You could pick an effective date of January 1. And
Right.
so this would be the first step, if you will, towards the adoption in April. So
The reason why I'm asking this is because, and I believe the reason why we are going the route we are is because if we wanted to make any changes, then we need to adopt them before January 1st. That was my understanding. i.e. this square footage stipulation.
I think that the
Otherwise,
commission,
if it went in, so the question was at our last meeting, if this goes into effect on January 1, can we make any changes to the square footage amount? I think that's why we are where we are, and I just wanted to clarify that question.
the terminology of opting in and opting out is what creates some level of confusion here, Scott, in terms
Correct.
of our scenario or situation.
Yep.
So Jamie and I worked together with Chuck and came to the realization that what we're showing here for April 2023 and beyond is consistent with the state requirements, the state provisions, the state standards. So if it goes into effect as of January 1, or goes into effect earlier, or goes into effect in April when we adopt, it is compliant. So I think the feedback that we got from Chuck was that we're okay moving ahead with this. Is that your recollection, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. If we direct our attention to Attorney Anders's email, there's one section where he says, you know, basically that let me just, my reasoning is that 30% of net floor area yields a number, but the 1,000 square feet is permissible because the regulation allows the commission to allow a number higher than the 30% floor area number. If the 30% calculation yields a number over 1,000 square feet, the 1,000 square feet is permissible because the statute allows the regulation to permit the lesser of the two calculations. Under either scenario, a limitation of 1,000 square feet or higher would be permissible. So my reading is that if we fully opt in, we are allowed to set a higher limitation than 1,000 square feet. But this is exactly the thing that I'm hoping the commission you know, would consider and review Chuck's email and ask questions on.
Yeah, but so I don't think we have any argument about that point. My question is about the logistics of this and the legal standing. So for instance, if we were not to vote on this on the next meeting and officially accept it, if we let it, therefore we opt in on January 1st, what does that line say on January 1st if we don't officially stipulate it?
So Chuck's reading is that under this subsection, as written in the model regulations, an ADU could be limited to 1,000 or higher square feet without also referencing the percentage of net floor area. So my understanding is that the commission, even with opting in, has the ability to exceed the 1,000 square feet and to eliminate the 30%. But
Again, I'm asking about the process, Jamie. I'm not asking about the stipulation.
No, let me just state here that okay, go ahead, Glenn.
No, I just think if you look at the top paragraph that's on the screen right now, Scott, that the bold underlined language says any non-compliant existing regulations becomes null and void. The commission were to adopt this regulation shown on the bottom of this page. The effective date was before January 1. Commission will have adopted a compliant regulation, and that as of January 1 will be a quote existing regulation at that time. And so we have moved in that direction. Does that answer your question?
Let me say this a different way.
Yep.
You have heard that we want this to read 1,200 square feet.
Yep.
What is your suggestion on how we get it to the point where it is correct and legally stated that it is 1,200 square feet? What do we do?
I think that we change the language in 1B on the page right there. The accessory unit shall not exceed 1,200 square feet of total interior finished floor area.
Okay. And then what? Are we doing anything on the next meeting?
I think if the commission closes the hearing tonight, I think you could act on it tonight or act on it at your next meeting, whatever the commission's pleasure would be.
But I act on your meeting that we have to vote to approve changing the amendment, approve this amendment.
I think if the commission wants to move in that direction, the motion for the commission would be to adopt this regulation subject to the condition that 1B gets changed, as I indicated, with an effective date of blank. And I would suggest a date before January 1.
That's all I'm trying to get to is are you telling us that we need to vote this before January 1st, or are you telling us to just let it roll over? That's all I'm trying to ask. And it sounds like you're telling me we need to vote on this before January 1st.
I'm not telling you that you have to, Scott. I mean, the memo identifies a 3-phase situation that's going to go into effect. So I think could be in the commission's best interest to adopt a compliant regulation with the square footage provisions that you want and have an effective date before January 1.
Okay.
I think if the commission feels better about it, you could continue the hearing, close the hearing. Jamie and I can check with Chuck before your meeting on the 21st, be ready to act on the 21st.
Yeah.
No, at this point, I'd like to open up to public questions
Yeah.
from the public.
Okay, can I ask just one question?
Sure, go for it, Larry.
It's kind of like your question. Suppose we adopt this, and then we're going to have a public hearing in March, I think, and comments are going to come, and we decide we want to change this in a way that's compliant with the state. Can we make changes?
Well, it would have to be.
No, we can't.
No. I think and maybe I'm just not understanding the logic here, but
Correct.
it is imperative. Okay, so let me just say this. The model regulations that Glenn has put forward right here in the possible new regulation, as I understand it, we can permit a accessory dwelling unit greater than 1,000 square feet. So you can, how I interpret this is that we can opt in to the model regulations and still have the discretion to permit an accessory dwelling unit greater than 1,000 square feet. Now, what we can't do is make other changes to these regs. And this is the point that I'm still a little bit fuzzy on, and I would still like to hear from Chuck Andrus on this, because I view these possible new regulations as opting in. With the question, the question here is whether or not we can, as a commission, approve an accessory dwelling unit that is greater than 1,000 square feet, as it is written in the model regulations. And I think the regulations allow us the opportunity to do that without opting out. Okay, so I just want to be clear that, like, there seems to be this bit of wiggle room in the regulations, but any more wiggle room that Larry may be referring to, we really couldn't do. Once we've selected not to opt out, and put forward our own regulations, then we couldn't make any changes in future.
So in March, we're presenting this to the public as a fait accompli.
It would already be in effect.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay.
So
I would present it more as we'll be explaining it to the public in March, as opposed to.
right, exactly. I mean, so no, the question here, Jamie, is this stipulation that we're allowed to make this change, and how legally is that supposed to happen? Does we opt in and then we have a grace period of 30 days to vote on the stipulation change, or do we have to, or does it just revert to something automatically and we've lost our chance if we opt in? That's the question. That's why we were concerned about doing this now, so that we don't lose our chance to change it before we automatically opt in. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're saying. So
the question is, what's the proper, we want to make this change. what's the proper process to make this change?
What I am trying to say is that this change that we're discussing, the ability for the commission to exceed the 1,000 feet.
We agree that we
is-
can do it.
Is something that can be done without opting out.
So
Agreed.
we're basically
That's what I'm saying.
opting in with a small amendment liberalizing the square footage.
Correct. I 100% agree with you that we can do it. I agree. What I'm asking
If
you,
the provisions of the model regulation allow for the exceedance of 1,000 square feet, we don't do anything. January 1, it goes into effect.
okay, so that if we wanted to be changed, if we wanted to be different than 1,000, then we need to do it now, is what I'm hearing.
We need to do it before the first.
Before the first. Or, no.
I think that is the case, Scott. I mean,
I don't understand why you're shaking your head, Jamie. What's,
I explicitly asked this question to Chuck, and if I got the wrong interpretation from
What
what he wrote, then
what
I
did
have
he say?
missed it.
what did he say?
It's in the memo.
I don't remember seeing it, but you read, what you read just says that we can do it. It doesn't say how we do it. It does not explicitly say that we have to vote before the first.
I'm
That's the
reading this
question.
I'm reading verbatim from what Chuck wrote. My reading is that under this subsection, an ADU could be limited to 1,000, parenthetically, or higher square feet without also referencing the percentage of net floor area. So my interpretation of that is that the commission is allowed to, even if opting in, exceed 1,000 square feet. But I think that is the point that is at question, that if we are looking to exceed 1,000 square feet, then we are going to have to opt out and put in 1,200 square feet. But this is a question for Chuck. I don't feel comfortable answering it.
Well, so maybe we
That's- Oh.
should get this clarified. And we have a hearing on the 21st. And can't we act on it then?
Glenn, doesn't it explicitly say that we have the ability to change this line? Doesn't it explicitly say that?
I think the issue is this text about a non-compliant regulation versus a compliant regulation. I think my thought is that having Chuck on the 21st, I think is the best option available to the commission, so that Chuck can explain to you clearly what it is that you are and are not allowed to do from a legal perspective on this. I'm not an attorney on this one. I think the issue on the process, my gut tells me that the 1,200 square foot, if you're going to do it, you're going to have to do it now. But I think I would suggest to you and the other commissioners that making sure that from Chuck's perspective, we're on a good legal footing would be an important consideration.
But when you say now, it means before January 1st.
Before January 1st.
Yes,
So
that is an operative date.
I'm sorry. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Jamie, you're thinking that if we wanted to change anything about this regulation, we have to opt out to do it?
No. Also in the memo, what I wrote to Chuck, the initial question that I wrote to Chuck is the language in section 6.3 of Public Act 21-29 seems to suggest a larger net floor area can be included in the local regulation without opting out, so that we could put that in there. My impression.
You can make it more liberal, not more restrictive.
Correct.
Right.
So
And he responded saying,
he responded with some legalese that apparently I've misinterpreted. So.
okay.
In other words, maybe.
Okay.
This is not a simple issue, guys, but I think, again, I think Public Act 2129 contains the language that as of January 1, any non-compliant existing regulation becomes null and void. So if you leave your current regulations in effect on January 1, that's non-compliant, that regulation is null and void, and you're subject to the statute. So I think what Jamie and Chuck are suggesting, I believe, is to go ahead and adopt this regulation before January 1. So it is a compliant existing regulation and we're good to go. After that, I mean, it's a tricky enough issue that I think having making sure that Chuck's given us good guidance and feedback here would be important.
I think everyone on the council is fine with doing that, but it seems like Jamie doesn't agree that we should be doing that.
It's not that I don't agree, Scott. I'm just hung up over this. You know, if you take the model regulation word for word, it talks about 30% of the net floor area of the primary dwelling unit or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. My understanding is that the commission would like this regulation for Guilford to remove the percentage and saying that it does not exceed 1,200 square feet.
Right.
I think we can just do that. And then, you know, even as the model regulations become in effect January 1, we will still, because of the ability to be more liberal than the model regulations, we can, as Glenn is saying in 1B, get rid of the percentage, put in 1,200 square feet, vote this in, and still be quote unquote compliant for opting in. That's, I hope I got that out correctly.
I thought, Glenn, when we were looking at that there was language in there specifically saying that we could change 1B. Did I mishear that? But I thought that there was language in the state regs saying that they were saying what we could and could not adjust. Is that incorrect?
I'm looking at it right now, Scott. Hang on.
Jeez. Yeah, I mean, whatever. As I said, I think it seems like, to me at least, the commission is pretty much in agreement. And so
yes, Scott, I don't think it's
a way to do this.
Lack of, you know, consensus amongst the commission. I think it's just, you know, do we have the discretion, if we are fully opting in, to raise the maximum square footage to 1,200 square feet? That's the question. Like, if, you know, that's the piece that is perhaps not crystal clear.
Well, I think as I'm reading here, Public Act 2129, subpart A3 says, except that such regulations may allow a larger net floor area for such apartments. So I think Scott points out, if you want to go.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's what it said. We can make it larger if we wanted to.
Yep.
So I
don't think we have to make it larger. We want to give our, you know, the citizens of Guilford some flexibility and not hamstring them so much that they can't let their in-laws live in an accessory apartment.
Mm-hmm. Right? Well, I think a larger number, Sean, would give more flexibility to potential creators of accessory dwelling units, because, you know, they've got more flexibility in their house to figure out, maybe it's not 1,200 square feet, but somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200, and they can configure rooms appropriately. So I think,
I guess, Jamie, I would agree with you. It doesn't say that we can't do, it doesn't say we can do away with the percentage, I guess. I guess that's the only way. It says that we can change the square footage number without opting out. Right? I feel like that's clear.
Yep.
So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's do some scenario thinking.
It seems like Chuck just wasn't understanding and didn't answer your question at all.
Look, I'm sorry, but why don't we just defer this until the 21st and have Chuck here with us and settle it at that time? I don't see how we're going to come to a conclusion tonight in his absence.
Agreed. Yep. Do we want to open up to public comment now, or do we want to wait till the 21st? Jamie, suggestions?
I would like you, I would like for you to open it up to public comment. There may be other.
Is there anyone in the public that would want to comment? Hi, Mr. Campaign. Thank you for waiting. Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Russell Campaign, architect locally here in town, 131 Boston Street. So I've had a couple conversations with Jamie about this and how this sort of goes down. And I was actually very integral in the original write-up of the accessory dwelling unit regulations on the planning committee when they were revamped a few years back, quite a few years back. But I guess one of the things that was pretty important with the idea of an accessory is that it's subordinate to the principal building and is somehow not the same size. And so under your regulations, if you omit the 30%, and I'm not suggesting you stay with 30%, but if you omit that 30%, you could have two equal sized dwellings, two 1,200 square foot dwellings, or frankly, you could have even a smaller principal building and a 1,200 foot detached. And I guess that's okay. You could have two cottages side by side, but it isn't what the accessory dwelling sort of suggests in that it's secondary to the principal building. Now, our regs are 35% of the square footage of the total area of living space on the property. So it's basically half of the size of the principal building. And the logic is that is a subordinate amount of square footage. My suggestion would be you stay with that language, put the 1,000 square foot minimum, cap, but actually allow it to go higher associated with larger size houses. So if someone had a 4,000 square foot house, they could have a 2,000 square foot accessory apartment and have everything kind of scale as subordinate together. But I also have a little hesitation about two equally sized buildings on a property. I guess it's okay and it's a cluster development, but it's very different from what an accessory dwelling is sort of in definition, I guess, from my opinion at least. The other, I guess, I don't understand why there's language in here associated with the health department. I mean, I think I might say this a lot, but we have a health department and a local health director that will oversee whether or not an apartment is meeting the standards of the health department. And I don't like the language in here. If it's simpler to put a second system in that's serving the same building and then expanding one system, why wouldn't you let them put in two systems if the health department allows it? I don't understand why you would put a criteria that it has to be a shared system and can't be two systems serving a dwelling if the health department allows it. And similarly, if it's detached, the health code requires it to be a separate system. So there shouldn't be any language in there that says that it should be a shared system when it won't be even allowed by the state standards. It's just take out that information. I don't understand why that has anything to do with the zoning department. Let the health department handle that. And there's no language that I saw in the Public Act that has anything to do with regulating septic. It puts it in the hands of the health department. And so those are the two major points that I would sort of put forward, I guess. And the other, I guess, that worries me a little bit, and I had a conversation, is that basically Chuck saying that you can't have a special permit process for things that don't meet the criteria. He's saying it has to go through a ZBA process. So my question, I guess, is if you have an existing non-conforming house, or existing non-conforming garage, and you're making a request to turn it into an ADU, so it's basically a change in use. It's a change from being a garage to an apartment, and yet it doesn't meet the principal setbacks or even the existing setbacks. Are you going to require a variance for that change of use to be allowed to convert that into a dwelling unit from a garage? And that is a pretty onerous undertaking from trying to prove out a hardship. And I know Steve Copps was going to tell you how frustrated he would be with that being put on him. And so it worries me because the existing special permit process gives you that discretion to allow for those kinds of adaptations and change of use. But if it's forced into a ZBA process, I'm a little concerned, and I don't know what the solution to that is, but it worries me a little bit. So those are my questions.
Those are great points, Russ.
Glenn, do you want to speak to the second point about the health department, those specific stipulations from the state law?
Yeah, so I think, bear with me for a second, bring it back up here. So there are limitations on communities' ability to require certain things. And the state is basically saying, listen, accessory dwelling units are going to be permitted as of right. So the issue of that Russ brought up in terms of a special permit, becomes a challenge because you have to allow it as of right, is what the state has been saying. So, I mean, if you want to do the special permit route, you have to opt out of the whole system overall. The other issue is there's language in here related to separate utilities. So the regulations are prohibited from requiring separate billings of utilities otherwise connected to or used by the principal dwelling unit. And municipalities shall not require the installation of new or separate utility connection directly to an accessory apartment or impose a related connection fee or capacity charge related to the sewer issues. So we were looking at that language and thinking that we were reflecting what the state legislation was essentially requiring. The language says served by a common water supply and a common sewage disposal system approved by the health director.
But Glenn, my point is that there are hundreds of items that are listed out as things that you can't do in that regulation in the
I know.
Public Act. Why
Not
pick out
100,
the
but
health?
yeah, keep going.
Why pick out the health code as a it hasn't it's monitored very carefully in Guilford by its own sanitarian. We have our own sanitarian. It's not even though it's that we're sending it off to a a regional health district. So I don't know. You cherry picked that one item out, put it in there. It just doesn't. It's intimidating, frankly, and it actually is restrictive because if it's saying that I have to share the septic system in the way it's written, not that I could use two septic systems for a single unit if it's approved by the health department. So I see it as actually not meeting the Public Act.
Yeah,
I have a question for Glenn. Utility is a pretty broad term. It could mean public sewer, could mean public water, and in Guilford, we have no public sewer. So I'm going back to Russ's point. It just.
So,
I just don't want to make this too restrictive.
So, sure. Right. Well, it's not restrictive. We're supposed to be following the state code. I mean,
but
the question is, Russ, do you have a problem with the way it's worded as far as the state code is concerned? And your problem is what we've written to go into our.
Well, what it says is that I can only put in an accessory apartment if the unit shall be served by a common water supply. What if I want to meter my rental with a separate water supply? What if I want to pay the fee to have separate utilities so I can track and charge rent to the person for that service? I can't do it. It says they shall be served by a common water supply. I want to have separate utilities if I want to. I mean, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, the Public Act says that the town can't require that, right? They cannot require.
They can't require it, but someone could if they want, but not under your right.
Why would we? Why would we do that?
No, I don't think you can do it, Sean, but some towns historically have done things like this to frustrate and create impediments to accessory dwelling units. The Public Act was an effort by the state to address those issues.
But Glenn, read this. The principal dwelling and accessory dwelling unit shall be served by a common water supply and a common sewage disposal system approved by the health department. It's saying I can't separate my utilities and charge rent to the person in my accessory apartment.
Russ, I understand what you're saying. I hear you loud and clear.
With the water, you can put a sub meter in. I mean, that's.
But why wouldn't I?
But I think we can also get to the same place by deleting the word common and 2 times in that sentence. Bottom line is,
are we allowed to do that?
I think that we can if we adopt this and get it effective by the end of the year.
Without opting out?
But why not strike?
We're in such a gray area here, Scott. I really would be comfortable that Chuck's in on this call.
So Russell, what you're suggesting is that you want to cherry pick pieces of this regulation. What we've been told is that we're either opting in or opting out.
No, I'm saying strike the whole sentence. why have
I-
anything in this, like, you don't say anything about the principal building setbacks, you don't say, like, why put anything about the health department approvals in here when you aren't addressing so many other things that you can't do in other areas?
I don't necessarily disagree with you. The question is about the logistics of it. Does that mean that we're opting out? It goes
No.
back to the same problem before.
No, it's
But
saying that you
I'm-
can't restrict someone from doing it. So if you have no language in there, you're not restricting them. Would be my interpretation of it.
I'm reading section 6 and I don't see any language one way or the other. You know, I'm agreeing with Russ because it doesn't have to be in there. Section 6 doesn't say anything about it in Act 2129.
I
You
think,
know,
yeah, I think-
we're adding something that isn't there in the state act.
yeah, I
It
think the
seems to me.
language in 7D says municipality shall not require the installation of new or separate. But I think that that might be beyond the concept of the word common. So common got in there, and I think I tend to agree with Russ here that common is probably not necessary there. But I guess what I'd like to say to the commission is I think there's three categories here. You could do nothing as a municipality, and come January 1, the state regulations go into effect, and these are issues that staff and others would be struggling with in the future. You could opt out, and then the commission could craft whatever regulations they want. We are going in the middle where we are crafting this regulation to be compliant with the state language. And I think what I'd like to do, because of the legal aspects of this, is get Chuck to weigh in.
So, yeah, I guess what I would say is, can we get Chuck to weigh in on how much of the provisions from the state can we waive and still be opting in?
Correct.
Like the common supply, et cetera, or the common septic, et cetera. Can we waive those specific provisions and still be opting in?
I just want to confirm the word common, that's what's in the state reg, or is that what Glenn
No,
wrote?
I'm not finding the word common. I want to do a quick
Okay,
search.
so then
The state
I think-
doesn't
then that-
want, the state doesn't want to put an undue burden on someone trying to develop an accessory apartment by
Russ, I
requiring
think
them to pay a
you don't
sewer
have-
tap.
I don't think you have to convince us. If the,
Yeah.
I think
No,
go
but-
back to what
but
the
so-
state regulation says, we don't need to put the word common, that's fine.
But why put any language in there at all about public water supply or septic? I don't.
Yes, we got this. We got this.
Okay.
We hear you loud and clear.
Okay. But the other
I mean,
is
it's gonna, Russ, it has to say whatever the state regulation says. I mean,
this-
we're opting into the
Right.
state reg.
No, this is, Glenn wrote this.
Yeah,
I
Russ, we
understand
got
that, but
it.
he wrote it based off the state regulations, Russ.
But I don't think the word common needs to be in there, Scott. So we're going to
Correct.
check with Chuck. I've got this.
Just reuse whatever wording is in the state regulation.
What I want Chuck to do is look at this language and specifically answer the question. This language does or does not comply with the opt-in provisions of the state law. Yes.
Right.
Commission is free to move
And-
ahead, do this
And
before January 1.
and Philip's comment is, Phil Johnson's comment is correct too. Is there any amount of cherry picking that we can do or not to? It explicitly says we can cherry pick the one stipulation about square footage, but is there any other cherry picking that we can do? It sounds like no. But.
Yep.
And so that's the problem we're dealing with here, Russ, is if we want to change anything, we have to opt out is what we've been hearing and understanding.
I think it's more nuanced than that, Scott. I think
I mean,
as
I
Chuck
wish-
has pointed out, this issue.
I hope
about
it is.
The percent and square footage is an area where we do have there's specific language in Public Act 2129, which gives the commission the ability to modify that number.
Yeah.
The square footage number.
Yeah.
So again, I just think it behooves us with January 1 coming up to talk to Chuck on it.
Okay.
So the square footage is the only other piece in that if you're comfortable with allowing for duplexes, basically, or two-family style residences, that are less than 1,200 square feet each, then I guess I'm fine. But basically, you know, if my house, which is 2,400 square foot in front, I want to split into an upper apartment and lower apartment as an equal 1,200 square foot, this regulation will allow me to do it. And I personally wouldn't call it an accessory apartment at that point. I would call it a two-family home. And I want to bring that up because when you don't have the percentage, it starts to change, you know, on the lower end of things. As you get larger, obviously you have the cap of 1,200 and the house continues to grow. But on the smaller scale, I don't know, is that the intention is my question of.
If I remember correctly, when we discussed it, nobody really had a huge problem with the percentage necessarily. Everyone was thinking that 1,000 was too small of the max, purely, but I don't know. Does anyone else remember the conversation about percentage and why we talked about getting rid of it? Was it just simplicity or was it?
Was if you had a very, very, very large house, and then if the percentage was 30, you know, with a square footage limitation and 35% of a 10,000 square foot house.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how many of those there are, but there are probably a couple.
Right, but if the not to exceed is 1,200, then that doesn't matter. You wouldn't be able to do a 2,000 square foot accessory apartment. I mean, so I think part of the discussion, Russ, was like it didn't make sense if you had a small house, if you had 1,000 square foot house as it was, then again, your same example holds true, even with a percentage like it.
What if we said 50%? I mean, that would still make it, you know.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah. Well, I think the question was, so you're creating, this is the percentage kind of creating a minimum. If your house happens to be small, if your house happens to be 1,000 square feet, then like how the heck are you going to do an accessory apartment that's only 300 square feet? Like you're basically doing a tiny house at that point. Yeah. So I think that's kind of what we were talking about, was that didn't exactly make sense.
Well, it currently it is 50% of the principal dwelling or 35% of the total area of the developed property if you're adding on.
Right. But the state
the state is different. The state is 30% of the principal, which is extremely small. That's very restrictive as the floor. I'm totally in support of larger. It's just a matter of how you deal with the potential of two equal size units. And maybe that's fine. Maybe two family homes, one up, one down, is okay. It's just a very different, model of growth than the idea of a subordinate unit attached to a principal dwelling.
I think that's how we got there, was that it's 30% of the whole. Yeah.
I just wanted to raise it because I'm fine. I think it could offer some interesting opportunities. I'm not sure, that I even really understand how that would affect the appearance and the way they shape the use of the downtown. So,
yeah, it's not shocking to me that the state reg isn't fully well thought out. That's not shocking to me.
Well, again, that's a minimum. They're suggesting that you can't go below this. We're asking to go higher. It's more, we have the liberty, I think, to shape this around what we feel Guilford's growth pattern should be.
Agreed.
And what we want to incentivize.
But you're bringing up the question of the percentage, and I thought when we were discussing it, that's what we thought, was that the percentage was effectively creating a minimum.
It will, yes. It will. It's just where you set that minimum. If it's 50% of the principal dwelling, it'd be more. If it's 70% of the principal dwelling, I don't know. I'm just asking if you feel there needs to be a hierarchy between the principal dwelling and the accessory dwelling. And if not, if they can be equal in your eyes, and that's not something that you feel is outside of what the accessory dwelling unit, definition is or growth pattern is, then I guess it's fine. I just wanted to raise that as how it would play out with smaller scale property.
Understood. I think what we can pose to Chuck is, it doesn't seem like we have the ability to change the percentage number. It only seems like we have the ability to change the square foot number.
Oh, I think you can go up.
You may, Scott. I mean, I think if I read the language here, According to Public Act 2129, it says, shall set a minimum net floor area for an accessory apartment of not less than 30% of the net floor
Okay.
area of the principal building, or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less.
So to
That's
keep it in line,
regulations.
are you suggesting, Russ, that to keep it in line with what we're currently doing, we would change it to 50? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, either 50% of the principal building or principal dwelling, or 35, 33.5% of the total floor area. Currently, we say the total floor area after development,
Well, in the state, Glenn, the state reg is total floor area, right?
No,
No.
the state regulation is based, the language it uses is 30% of the net floor area of the principal dwelling. Okay, so
Isn't that?
That's
So
even
why not
smaller
go
than
to-
what we had.
So why
this is
not go to
describing the
50%?
situation that was taking the combined floor area and 35% of that. The state has chosen a different route. It's just a question of the numerator and the denominator.
Well, then somebody would have to explain the math to me then to really tell me what it results in, or what the number should. Yeah.
If the accessory dwelling,
math.
as Russ points out, if the accessory dwelling unit is half the size of the house, then that's 33% of the total of both. But the state's methodology, they are using the phrase net livable area of the principal dwelling. So at that point in time, I think
So it
the
is
state
correct
says you
that if
can't
we,
go less than 30% of that. And I think that Russ's relationship of what was originally intended in the regulations for Guilford was 50%.
so changing it to 50 would create it to be 33, just like what we currently have.
Correct.
Again, somebody did the math. Thank you. So I would be totally fine with that, with changing it to 50 to make it concurrent with what we're currently doing. That's makes
I
reasonable.
also think from a design perspective, Russ is on top of it in terms of the idea of the relationship between the two. If you had two equal sized buildings on a piece of property, I think it might surprise a lot of people. And so
Yep.
accessory should be accessory.
I don't disagree.
I would encourage you, as part of the revamp of the zoning, to revisit two-family dwellings as a separate, potentially special permit process, that expands beyond the R2, or R1. I guess it's R1 that it's allowed in right now. So that would be where you could open up opportunities for two-family dwellings if you wanted to.
We're trying to put in a lot of things related to two-family, multi-family anyway. So
Yeah. But that
hopefully
wouldn't be
will handle it.
captured by this state mandate.
Agreed.
And you could
This is
handle
only
it.
for APs.
Yep.
And I don't think it was anyone's intention to make it so that it was two-family dwellings. No. So.
All
Thank you.
right, so
Our process-
when
our
we talk
process is
about
that-
this on the 21st,
Right.
we're gonna put the 50% in,
That's what it sounds like to me.
okay,
And not to exceed 1,200.
not to exceed 1,200, okay,
Would
And
you like a motion to continue to the 21st?
yep.
I
I'd
mean,
like to make a motion. To continue
we don't
the
even really,
discussion,
yeah.
Modifications to the 21st.
Second,
Thanks, Frank. You're on point with your seconds.
all night, buddy. Let's go.
All in favor? You say aye.
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 That's unanimous. Thank you very much. And can we confirm that Chuck will be there, please, Jamie?
Yes, I will also do that. Can you just confirm for me that the meeting continued and kept recording while my internet died and I had to log on to the.
It's
Did I
still-
let this keep happening?
It still says recording up there.
Okay.
Um,
Yes, I will. I'm certain that Chuck will be able to attend.
Okay,
hey,
next,
All right. Deliberation of, that's the end of the public hearing. We'll go to our regular meeting.
Well, didn't we have a letter speaking about a number of things, but one of them was about ADUs from Wendy Dockery?
Well, we continue that to the next meeting, so we can read it into the record at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right. Joyce, does anyone want to read a motion related to Joyce A. D'Amato?
If you would like to put it up, I'm happy to read it.
Sure.
Proposed motion, D'Amato, 46 Gray Ledge Drive approval. Voted the Guilford Planning and Zoning Commission approve a special permit to, what is it? Render.
Render.
Sorry. I'm working on a much smaller screen. Render compliant an existing attached accessory apartment at 46 Gray Ledge Drive, map 51, lot 214, zone R5. Approved drawing include existing floor plan drawings by RISE Visual Media provided with the special permit application dated November 11th, 2022. This application is approved with the following conditions. The applicant shall file with the town clerk an original copy of the special permit approval to be provided by the Planning and Zoning Department, and shall furnish written evidence to the Planning and Zoning Department that the document has been recorded. Do we also want to include approval from the building inspector?
Correct.
So
Additionally,
that'd be 2 point, I think that's point 2.
right, point two, that the approval is contingent upon inspection by the building official to ensure safety of the ADU. The application is approved based upon a finding that it conforms with the Guilford zoning regulations 273-19, apartment accessory to single family dwelling. The approval shall become effective 15 days after publication of the legal notice of decision.
Second,
Second,
Mr. Sands. Discussion. Any discussion? I'm comfortable with it, based on the walking through the building official. I understand your point, Philip, about the building permit, but
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. It's just, I think we just want to make sure that it's, we're not talking about 1950s compliant.
Yeah, I mean, it is 35 years old.
Right.
yeah.
We
Well,
want to make sure the plugs are grounded. There are GFI plugs in the kitchen, that it's,
yeah, but so is the rest of the house. You can sell a house without all those things, without having to walk through and update the building permit.
right, but they didn't do it in the first place, so.
Well, they did the house. You understand my point, though. I mean,
I just,
I
know.
agree with you too, that we don't want to, it's not like we're setting a precedent that we're going to allow people to just do whatever they want to and then come back and say sorry a year later. Like, clearly, if it's anywhere recent, then they have to get a building permit. That's, I think.
Well, I mean, the ADU, I mean, they could be renting this and it's not a family member. We just want to be sure it's safe. That's all.
No, I think everyone agrees to that.
And then, so we're just going to leave it to the building official to decide, to what degree they're going to make this unit be compliant either with current regulations or with regulations at the time when it was built. I mean, that's.
Yeah, if he thinks it needs GFI, then that's his decision.
Right.
okay,
All right, Larry Rizzola,
Yes.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Ted Sands,
yes,
Philip Johnson,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
Frank DeAndrea,
Aye.
and I will also vote yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Beatty. Pending applications, James and Joyce Glass, 2 Guilford Road, Point Road, map 27, lot 7, zone R3, coastal site plan application for a 17-foot by 25-foot garage addition. Receive and set public hearing for December 21st, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Chuck, could you please take down the
Yep, I got it.
auto motion?
All right. Other commission business, approval of minutes from November 16th. Was anyone ever able to review the minutes from our last meeting?
I'd move the minutes be accepted.
I offered a correction to Jamie. Is that in the,
And it has since been made, so they have changed slightly, so you might want to just say with Commissioner Rizzolo's suggested edit.
Great. Second? Anyone?
Second.
Give it to Kevin. All in favor? You say aye.
Aye.
aye,
I will abstain.
Abstain from Phil. Any else? All right, any other business? Jamie?
No.
I think it's bedtime for Frank.
Thank you,
Entertain-
Glenn. Thank you, Glenn, for your help on
Thanks,
this one. We'll continue.
Appreciate it. To entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second,
Second from Ted. All in favor?
Second.
Goodbye. Good night.
See you on the 21st.
Yeah, see you then.
night.
Good night.